What if I told you that the real Dracula was not just a myth, but a flesh and blood prince who impaled his victims alive to keep entire kingdoms in fear? Before the name Dracula became a legend, Vlad Andreas of Wallachia was a living warning. Entire villages vanished in his dungeons. His enemies bled out on towering stakes under the hoarse cries of ravens. Yet behind this man lay more than mere cruelty. His childhood was a prison, his crown a curse. If you're ready to face the truth, subscribe now, because this story will haunt you. 15th century Romania. Wallachia lies between the Ottoman Empire Hungary and the Holy Roman Empire, a blood-soaked battlefield torn by power struggles, religions, and intrigues. In this world, Vlad is born son of Vlad Dracul, a member of the Order of the Dragon, a vassal of the mighty. But his father is more symbol than ruler. Vlad's life begins not in a golden palace, but in a web of political chains. At barely 12, Vlad and his brother Radu are sent as hostages to the Ottoman Empire, a common practice. But for Vlad, it marks the start of his inner decay. While Radu adapts learning the Ottoman tongue and blending into their court, Vlad resists. He watches, remembers, and above all, he hates. At night, his whispers echo, "I will return." The years in Ottoman captivity shape Vlad not just mentally. He witnesses executions, hears bones crack, smells burned flesh. But the cruelest part isn't the acts, it's the indifference of the perpetrators. For Vlad, it becomes clear in this world justice doesn't rule. Fear does. And those who aren't feared are lost. After his father's death and his elder brother's murder, Vlad returns not as a child, but as a tool of vengeance. Wallachia is in chaos. Hungary and the Ottomans vie for control. Local lords switch sides like shirts. Vlad seizes the opportunity. With a small band, dark promises, and an unexpected thirst for blood, he begins his rise. His first act as Prince Betrayal. In a night of purging, he impales dozens of boyars nobles who once betrayed him. Old, young, none are spared. The stakes stand like sentinels before his fortress. As the sun rises, the ground is still wet with blood, and the ravens fall silent out of respect. But Vlad seeks more than retribution. He wants order, his kind of order. Thieves, beggars, even adulterers all become warnings. Stories spread like plague. A cauldron of gold sits in the marketplace untouched because everyone knows the price to stake. People stop calling him just a prince. They whisper Dracula, son of the dragon. But the word takes on a new meaning, devil. As his enemies vanish, his legends grow. It's said he dines among stakes, drinks his victims' blood, his eyes glowing like embers in the night. Yet legends aren't all that grow, his enemies do too. Hungary grows wary. The Ottoman Sultan, once his host, now sends envoys with demands. Vlad, refusing to negotiate, impels the messengers in open declaration of war. The world turns against him. In the forests around Târgoviște, a grim masterpiece emerges, the Forest of the Impaled. Thousands of Turkish soldiers, skewered in geometric precision. A sultan's messenger returns pale and stammering. Asked what he saw, he replies, "I saw death, and he wore a crown." The Ottoman response is merciless. A vast army marches toward Wallachia. But what they find isn't a prince in fear, it's a land in flames. Wells' poisoned supplies burn villages empty, and at night only the creaking of stakes in the wind. Vlad wages a war of shadows. Every step on his soil is a step toward death. A defector from Vlad's circle later reports that the prince barely slept, instead roaming the forests at night, personally arranging the stakes. He had a knack for effect, for fear as architecture. For him, death wasn't just punishment, it was a message. But with every impaled foe, distrust festers in his own land. Peasants vanish. Women are accused of witchcraft. Vlad's paranoia knows no bounds. One night, his personal physician is found impaled, a note pinned to his chest. He doubted. In the winter of 1462, the confrontation looms. Mehmed II, conqueror of Constantinople, stands with over 100,000 men before Vlad's territory. But as they pass through the Forest of the Impaled, something inexplicable grips them. Not fear, not horror, but disgust. The bodies aren't fresh. They're preserved with salt, with lime deliberately. An Ottoman chronicler writes, "Never has an enemy fought so little and defeated us so much." Soldiers vomit. Some refuse to march on. Vlad didn't win with steel, but with imagination. Yet his victory comes at a cost. Wallachia lies in ruins, his allies dwindle. Abandoned and hunted, Vlad flees to the Carpathians. Years of exile follow, captured, released, forgotten. In these years, the first poems about him emerged not as a prince, but as a monster. Vlad writes, Vlad waits, Vlad plans. When a political vacuum arises, Vlad returns backed by Christian allies. But he's no longer the man he was. Isolation has made him more extreme. Instead of reconciliation, he brings lists of names people who laughed while he suffered. Now they're targets, and Vlad has time to catch up. But something has changed. The people remember the blood, the silence, the stench. There's no joy in his return, only stillness. Even his new allies avoid him, sending weapons, but no advisors and a warning. This time, you won't rise again. His final bid for power ends in chaos. An ambush, perhaps betrayal. Vlad's body is found beheaded, mutilated, burned. Some say his own men betrayed him, others that the devil finally claimed him. But no one knows where his head went. And here the myth begins. His skull, they say, was sent to the Sultan as a trophy, but never confirmed. Years later, tales emerge of a headless rider in the Carpathians, a scream in the fog, and in the cellars of old castles, freshly carved stakes as if someone meant to return. Centuries pass, but the name Vlad the Impaler endures not in history books, but in whispered legends. Travelers avoid certain paths, shepherds report hoofbeats at night, animals, even people, still disappear. The fear outlives the man. In the 18th century, Western scholars take interest. Monastery records surface detailed accounts of impalements, confessions, eyewitnesses. A monk writes, I saw the prince not as a man, but as a tool of God or the devil. But it's an Irish writer who changes everything. Bram Stoker, inspired by Vlad's records, creates a new figure in 1897, a count in a Transylvanian castle drinking the blood of the living, never-dying Dracula. The myth is born, but Stoker doesn't know the full truth. He weaves fiction and reality deliberately because the real story was too brutal to tell unmasked. His Dracula is refined, cultured. Vlad was raw, fueled by rage, shaped by torture and betrayal. Yet it's this truth that still draws people today. In 20th century communist Romania, Vlad is rehabilitated, not a monster, but a national hero, a strong leader who defended his land against invaders. The impalements, enemy propaganda. But unease lingers among the people. A Romanian historian writes, what if both are true? What if he was hero and monster? This question divides generations. Tourism booms. Castles like Ponari or Bran, allegedly Vlad's seats, become pilgrimage sites for thrill seekers, researchers, spiritualists. In 1976, archaeologists uncover human remains in a cave near Nagark, showing signs of brutal violence, bones pierced, some with iron hooks. No proof but clues. The cave was sealed from the inside. Who was trapped there and why? A 15th century survivor's account describes a girl escaping Vlad's dungeon. Her claims were dismissed as madness. She spoke of rooms full of spikes, a chamber where people were boiled alive, a throne surrounded by body parts where the prince sat smiling quietly. Later in Poenari's ruins, a chamber was found with human skin fragments etched with strange symbols. No archivist could identify them. Some say they're ancient runes, others early coded messages, others still a diary. One half-deciphered line, the stake purifies where words fail. Whatever drove Vlad, it was more than sadism. It was a philosophy, a religion of pain. The deeper you dig, the clearer it becomes. The Dracula legend isn't exaggerated. It's a softened version of the truth. Some psychohistorians argue Vlad was a mirror of his time, a product of brutal power logic, where mercy meant weakness. Others say he went beyond savoring cruelty, not as a tool, but as pleasure. His eyes, it said, shone brightest when someone screamed. A tale recounts Vlad helping a poor peasant only to impale him later for not meeting his gaze. His judgments followed no law but his mood, his vision of order, total control, even over the fear of the innocent. Legends claim he ate among his victims, dipping bread in the blood dripping from impaled bodies. Historians doubt it, but what if it's true? What if it wasn't invention, but a ritualized act, a symbolic fusion of rule blood and flesh? Romanian retains phrases like, to eat like Vlad, or to command like the Impaler. His memory lives not just in books, but in language, in grandmother's fears and old lullabies, warning of Dracula, not a hero, but a caution. A 2003 sociological study on terror regimes in Eastern Europe found that where Vlad ruled, trust in institutions remains lower, belief in strongmen higher as if his shadow burned into the collective psyche. Why does Vlad fascinate? Because he's more than a tyrant. He's a symbol of power, erasing humanity of the thin line between order and madness of the darkness in us all. In a Brasov monastery, a fresco was found a man atop a mountain of stakes with wings of chains and a scepter of bone. No official portrait of Vlad, but the resemblance is eerie, as if a monk knew what was coming and preserved it. Some conspiracy theories claim Vlad never died, that his body was hidden, that he lingers in ancient catacombs, not as a vampire, but as an idea resurfacing when order teeters into chaos. Perhaps the true horror isn't that he existed, but that his legacy endures in dictators and terror, in systems that prize obedience over justice. Vlad wasn't alone. He was just the first to flaunt it. Today, Dracula is a tourism icon, a costume, a movie character. But beneath every plastic fang, every joke lies a question. What if we haven't defeated the real Dracula? What if he never left, just changed form? A historian once said Vlad wasn't the monster, he was the mirror, reflecting his time's brutality and ours. What separates a modern dictator from him? A suit instead of armor, media instead of stakes. The goal is the same: control through fear. In 2015, Vatican archives revealed a cryptic letter from a Transylvanian bishop describing a nighttime visit with Vlad. No guards, just the prince, pale and awake. They spoke for hours about salvation, guilt, death. At the end, Vlad asked, "Can a man who loves the stake love God?" The bishop didn't answer. Some church historians believe Vlad saw himself as divinely ordained, his madness not an end, but a perverse penance creating order through blood, like a Roman judge or a fallen angel torn between salvation and damnation. In 2021, researchers found high adrenaline traces on a dagger, allegedly Vlad's, as if gripped in extreme stress. No proof, but an echo from the past. Today's Dracula festivals, with tourists dancing in vampire teeth through Sigashora, feel almost ironic, as if we've chosen to bury the horror under carnival. But in small museums, real torture tools still hang, and no children laugh there. In a Targoviste inn, an untitled portrait by an unknown artist shows a figure with a tiny stake painted in its pupil, barely visible yet central. As if the painter said, "You can dress up the monster but not hide it." A Yugoslav war survivor once said, "I saw men like Vlad, just nameless." Violence has many faces, but some return because we don't bury them. We cover them up. History doesn't repeat, it whispers, and those who don't listen become its next victim. In 2009, a girl in a Sibiu boarding school wrote a poem about Vlad. She had nightmares saw him at her window. No one believed her until one morning a single long, thin line like a stake was drawn in condensation on her glass. An anthropologist said every culture creates its monsters. But Vlad was real, and that makes him immortal. His legacy isn't blood or power, its presence, the inability to be forgotten, because some truths are too cruel to ever fully escape. Deep under Ponari Fortress, carved in stone, I am not gone, I am structure. No date, no name, just 6 words. A jest, a cry from the depths, or perhaps the truth. Vlad's final years remain a mystery. No one knows where he died, who betrayed him, or if his body was ever laid to rest. Some say he was dismembered, scattered across monasteries as a warning. Others believe his heart was never found, and a heart without rest beats on. In 1997, 500 years after Stoker's novel, a Carpathian hiker claimed he saw a bone thrown in a cave. No photo, no coordinates, just a voice whispering, "You're late." He later said, "I didn't know eyes could be so cold." Science calls it myth-making, the collective mind inflating horror to cope. But what if these tales aren't coping mechanisms but warnings? What if we don't remember Vlad to demonize him, but to recognize him in us, in others, in systems? Some relics from his torture chambers have been studied: nails with human tissue bent iron, rings, a knife etched with a cross. No tool was random. Pain was staged. Suffering was architecture, and Vlad was the builder. In 2012, when a Wallachian village was evacuated due to seismic activity, a chamber was found beneath a church wall, scratched raw, 3 skeletons, and on one wall written in blood, "I was just." The find was never officially confirmed. A young historian obsessed with Vlad vanished soon after. His last post, "I think I understand him." His apartment was empty save for a Wallachian map with a single red dot in the middle of nowhere. Vlad's legacy defies categorization. Was he a tyrant, a visionary, a madman, or just a man shaped by violence who chose to strike back with means that outlasted death? The truth is, Vlad was real. His deeds are documented, his cruelty proven, but his motives remain a riddle. Perhaps it was fear, rage, or the realization that in a world of monsters, only the greatest monster survives. A monk once wrote of him, "I didn't hate him, I understood him." And that scares me. Because when we start understanding monsters, where does judgment end and justification begin? Vlad the Impaler's story isn't a fairy tale. It's a monument to what humans will do in the name of order, revenge, God, or glory. The next time you think of Dracula, don't think of the vampire, think of the man. And ask yourself how much of him still lives in our world today. Tourists snap selfies at his castle, buy plastic fangs, drink blood wine. They laugh. And maybe that's his final triumph, that we laugh while his truth rots unnoticed beneath our feet. What if the horror isn't in the terror, but in the forgetting, in normalizing violence, in fascination with the monstrous without seeing the system behind it? Vlad wasn't unique. He was the pinnacle of a system that mistook pain for order. We call ourselves civilized, but torture persists. Fear still rules, people still vanish. Not on stakes, but in camps, on lists and lies. Maybe we don't need stakes anymore. Maybe an algorithm is enough. Vlad shows us an uncomfortable truth. Evil isn't always ugly. It often wears uniforms, titles, flags. It enters with applause and grows in silence. When no one speaks, when no one looks, it returns. An old man in Bucharest once said, "As long as we think Dracula is just a story, we're in danger. Stories don't protect us. Only memory does, memory of pain, guilt, and the duty to never repeat it." Vlad likely died, but the idea didn't. The idea of ruling through fear, controlling through terror, leaving bloodstains that last centuries. His stakes have rotted, but his method lives. They say legends never die. That's wrong. Legends die when you understand them, dissect them, lift the veil, and see the scarred, angry human beneath. That's our task. The more we know about Vlad, the more we see it's not about him, it's about us, our capacity to remember, question, resist, to stand tall in a world that too often prefers silence. The question isn't how Vlad could be this way, but how so many could watch. Perhaps Dracula was never a vampire, but a mirror forcing us to look where it hurts, to listen. When history whispers, to remember the true horror isn't the supernatural, it's the human. If this story got under your skin, like, share, and comment, because only together can we lift history's veil. And if you're ready for more dark truths, subscribe. We're just beginning, and the shadows are long.